All right. That was a little high from Ruby. So today I'm going to show you how to make twice baked potatoes. So I actually had never made them until last week, I believe it was, maybe the week before. And I went ahead and gave it a shot because I was hungry for them and didn't want to make an extra trip to the store. And they're pretty easy, so I think you guys can do them. So I have everything laid out. The only thing, I went ahead and the very first step is to coat the baked potatoes in oil and then cook them in the microwave at 350 degrees for an hour. So that step I already did without you guys. I thought you guys could probably handle that one on your own. But the rest of them I wanted to show you. So we have our baked potatoes here. I also already cooked our bacon. So I guess I did two steps without you. The bacon, you can just fry it on the stove like normal, and your parents could help you with that. You also could use bacon bits in place of the cooked bacon. Or what I did was bake them in the oven on a cookie sheet at 425 for about 15 minutes until they look crispy. So a couple of different ways you can prepare your bacon there. In the recipe it calls for 8 slices. I just did 5. It's what I had on hand the last time and it worked out pretty well, so I went ahead and did that this time as well. When I post this to Google Classroom, I will also post the link to the recipe that I am using. Okay? All right, so I apologize for the glare of the sun. It just is in a bad place in the house right now. All right, so let's get started. Our potatoes are already cooling, which is step 3. And it says to slice them lengthwise. So I'm going to pick them up. Because we're making the twice baked potatoes, we're going to end up using the potatoes. So I'm going to pick the way that I think it's going to make the best little boat, if that makes sense. You're just going to slice them and then put them aside for the next step. Remember guys, and we haven't gone over, especially 7th grade, we haven't gone over very many knife skills. But remember when you have your knife, it's safest one to always have a sharp knife. If you have a dull knife, you're more likely to get a more severe cut. Because the dull knife does not bite into whatever you're cutting as much, and it's going to slip around, and you have to put more pressure on it in order to get the job done. So a dull knife is always more dangerous, okay? So I have a nice sharp knife here. I'm gripping the handle of my knife with my thumb and my forefinger actually on the blade, right? Keeping my fingers out of the way so it doesn't get pinched down here. You can see that, but that gives you the most control over your blade, okay? With your other hand, you're going to make a bear claw. That keeps your fingers nice and out of the way of the blade, right? It can just slide along them instead of catching one of them. You don't want to do that. All right, so I got my bear claw on the side of the potato here. I'm going to slice straight down and then set that potato aside. Be a little bit careful on this step because your potatoes are still just a little bit warm. You don't want to burn yourself. The recipe calls for 4 large baked potatoes, or 4 large potatoes. I'm doing 8 because I'm going to send some over to my grandma for her to have for dinner. So I doubled my recipe. All right. And rest assured we will follow, my grandma is older, and so we will follow great social distancing rules. What we've come up with to do is I drop things off on their doorstep and then wait and make sure they answer the door and get them. So we don't ever actually make contact, which is, to me, horrible. I miss my grandma. I bet you guys may be feeling the same way at home. It's hard to stay away from everybody, isn't it? Even though we know it's safe. All right, so we have that step done. Now, what the recipe says to do is to go ahead and scoop out the inside of the potato. But I found last week is they're still a little bit warm right now. So I'm going to let them be open to the air, and I'm going to mix everything else in the bowl first, and then I'm going to add the potatoes in because that's going to allow time for that potatoes to let off some of that heat. All right, so our next step, use the same knife. We need to get our bacon into pieces. So I'm just going to stack my bacon up. I'm using a chef's knife for this. The chef's knife is your big utility knife that you use most often in the kitchen. A lot of people are intimidated by the chef's knife, but it's not really, it's an appropriate knife for the job. And remember, we discussed, if you're selecting the appropriate knife for what you're doing, you're less likely to get hurt because the knife's going to do the work for you and you don't have to put as much force into it. Now you can see I put my hands further back and further back. It's kind of more of a claws. I'm trying to hold on to that very end. All right, so now I have pretty big pieces. I don't know if you guys can see those pieces in the video. It's hard to get it wide enough so that you can see everything I'm doing, but little enough that you guys can see what I'm doing. So they're still pretty big pieces. So I'm just going to cut lengthwise across here a few times. Make our pieces just a little bit smaller. Just like that. This bacon smells delicious. All right, so then I'm going to set the bacon aside back on the plate because now I'm going to cut my green onions. Now, from a food safety standpoint, I'm cutting meat and then I'm going to cut green onions. Is that a safe thing to do? We've talked about cross-contamination a lot. Is it safe to cut meat and then cut vegetables? Most of the time the answer is no, right? Because most of the time we're cutting raw meat if we're preparing a meal. This meat is already cooked. It's already been to an acceptable temperature, so it should be okay to begin with. And then added to that, we're going to cook everything together again. So from a food safety standpoint, this time it's okay. But if you guys caught that, I'm glad that you understood that that wasn't the way that we normally do it. All right. So if we're cutting the green onions, I don't know if anybody at home has cut green onions before. When you cut green onions come like this. And they're just a young, immature onion. So they don't have all the potent flavor of an onion, but still a lot of the same flavor. When you cut them, you're going to go ahead and cut the ends of them off. And discard those. And then you're going to cut the very tips of them off. Just the very tip. And you're going to discard those. Just like that. All right. And then now you're going to cut lengthwise. Let's see if I can cut all 4 of them at the same time. How good am I today? Just like so. And little, I would say probably 1/4 inch slices. Again, the recipe, if I was following the recipe exactly, it calls for a few more green onions than what I'm using. My kids don't really appreciate the green onions. I don't want to skip them entirely because they add a lot of flavor to it. Ruby's going to be my helper today. But I also don't want to hear kids complain about me putting green onions in their food. So we'll meet halfway. How's that? All right, I'm going to put that knife aside because I'm done with it for now. I'm going to put my green onions aside because I'm done with those for now. And I'm going to get my bowl out. All right, so I'm going to add to it 2 cups of sour cream. This is a 16-ounce container. So we're just going to add the whole thing. Now that little bit on top, a lot of times sour cream settles when it's in the container. You can go ahead and mix it up and get that little bit of liquid skimmed off the top. In this case, we're mixing it anyway, so it's going to all turn out just fine. All right. We've got that in our bowl, so I'm going to look at our next ingredient, which is milk, and it's a cup of milk, right? So I have my liquid measuring cup. Remember, liquid measuring cups have a little bit of space at the top so that when you're pouring liquids, they don't spill out as you're transferring to the bowl. You could use a dry measuring cup, and it certainly would be the same measurement, but this just gives us a little bit more leniency as far as spilling, which I'm sure your parents would appreciate in their own kitchens. All right.
Hey, I need to help you.
Okay, you can do the next one then. Okay, butter. Can you grab the butter right there and then add the butter to the bowl?
Yeah.
All right, come over here, Ruby. That's not what we're doing. There you go. Come over here and put that in the bowl. Now I softened my butter in the microwave for about 20 seconds. So I don't know if you saw there at the beginning. Some of it's a little bit liquefied. That's okay. Again, it's going to all get mixed together anyway. No cat while we're cooking. Go on.
Because.
No cat while we're cooking.
He's a kitten, not a cat.
Go on. All right, so now we need a teaspoon of salt. There you go. It also calls for pepper. I don't have any in here today. My kids balk at seeing the brown pieces. You gotta forgive them. All right, I'm just mixing that together a little bit. And then it calls for half a cup of cheese. Okay, you need to go in the other room now. You're being too silly. Go play your Osmos.
Puzzle?
Yeah, go work her puzzle. Right now, go. All right. So now it calls for, and I don't have a measuring cup here, I'm just going to eyeball it. Calls for a cup of cheese. And it says cheddar cheese. I'm going to put just a little bit of pepper jack in it. I did that the last time because I didn't have quite enough cheddar cheese, and it really gave a great flavor to it. So I mix that in. You can use whatever cheese you have on hand too. So you have Colby Jack on hand, then use Colby Jack. If you have mild cheddar or you have Mexican cheese, those are all okay too. Ruby, you need to go on with Grandma. All right, so we got our cheese. Now we need our bacon. It says to save some of the bacon for the top. And then we need, same with our green onions, saving a couple of them for the, or a little bit of it for the top to garnish the tops of them. Just like that. And then it's ready for the potatoes, okay? So you're gonna take the potato and you're gonna leave just a little bit of potato there, but you're gonna scoop out most of the potato, okay? Should give it up pretty readily here. I don't know if this one's being difficult. You're going to try not to damage the skins. This one cracked just a little bit. We'll be able to work with that. You're just going to scoop out the middle there. You're going to keep doing that with all your potatoes. This is kind of the tedious part. Just like so. My potatoes need to cook for just a little bit longer, or a little bit, not quite soft enough. All right. No, maybe I just had one potato that just didn't get there. All right, so you can see you're getting most of the potato out, leaving just a little bit to still give it a little bit of structure, but most of the potato now is in the bowl. These make a great side dish. The only problem I have with these as a side dish is it, sorry, I I've gotten into something I'm allergic to. My nose is very itchy. In the summer months, it's really hot here today, and in the summer months it can be kind of heavy on your stomach. But I like to pair it. I'm going to grill tonight. I'm going to grill some pork chops and pair these twice baked potatoes with pork chops. That should be a pretty good dinner for us. All right, I'm going to stop the video here so that you guys don't have to watch me put all the potatoes in. And then I'll get back to you when I got all the potatoes ready to go. Ruby, can you stop it?
Okay, Mommy. Hi.